Neck-throughs, guitars, they're like a guy that you won't have a beer with you.
I want to hear what's pushing the notes.
Freddie King and B.B. King, Albert King, and let's not forget Burger King.
I don't want to blow my knuckle out.
Stainless steel is the work of the devil.
These go to 11.
From the East Amplification Tone Labs in Baltimore, Maryland, it's the Amps and Axes Show. With your hosts, Jeff the Godfather of Low Wattage Amps Bober and Mick Marcelino.
Good day to you, Mr. Bober.
Hey, good day to you, Mr. Marcelino. It's, currently it's a wet, cold one out, so it's, I'm glad we're in the studios.
Oh my God. With the flu and the stomach flu and the this and that, it's like, man, come on.
Come on, spring. Come on, spring.
Jesus, it's just winters anymore. They're not fun. They used to be fun when I was a kid. You'd get that snow and then,
right.
Now I'm 200 years old. So anyway,
you look good for 200.
I'll tell you what, I'm aging well.
For 200.
God damn it! Hey, guess what? You guys out there, you're listening, you're spreading the word. We can't thank you enough. And listen, this is the only way. I always say this. It's the only way it will get around. And make sure that when you tell your friends, you want to go to ampsandaxescast.com. And if you're buying anything, click on our Amazon banner, man. Throw some love. It puts the little, the coal in the train. The train keeps going, right?
Right.
Because it costs a little bit for me to do this.
That's right.
I have to get it out the door. And, me and Jeff, we work. We have things called families, just like you guys. So we need your help, and we do appreciate all the word and the love that you're spreading around, man.
Yeah, let's try not to let the train run out of coal, people.
It would be nice.
All I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Yes, and to keep so when you tell people, hey, I heard about this train that's trying not to run out of coal, you want to tell them that you heard it here first.
That's right, about the train and about music, because that's kind of what we do more than train stories. But
I can't talk really about trains, but we can talk this all day.
That's true. That's true. So, your friends, your relatives, and you heard it here first. And we're going to bring you somebody probably that you're going to hear about first today. He's been around for a while, which was I didn't know he was around as long as he was. But he's, got a really cool background, played with a really iconic band for quite a while, and now he's out on his own with his own project and just finishing up his new album. So we're going to find out all about that. So we're going to take a pause for the cause, and we're going to come back with guitarist for his own band now, Mr. Jamie McLean.
Hi, this is Steve Morse, and you're listening to Amps and Axes.
All right, and we are back as promised with our guest of the week, guitarist for the Jamie McLean band. That would be Mr. Jamie McLean. Jamie, how are you, man?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Doing great. Thanks for taking the time with us.
Of course. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Oh, it's all good. I think I told Mick when I booked this, he said, who's Jamie McLean? I said, I just saw him open up for Davey Knowles, and this guy's great. We got to have him on. So
cool. That's a done and done.
That's right. Because we love Davey. Davey's a really great friend of ours. And
anybody I'll lend your prototype pedal to for over a year is fine by us.
Yeah, that'd be Davey. So yeah, but cool. So
we had a great tour together. We had a really good time, and he's a great dude, great player, and we're definitely going to be doing some more in the future. We had a really good time together.
Awesome.
Nice. Well, we'll I don't know where all that tour went, but I'm sure we can discuss it. But like I do with all our guests, I like to take a ride in the Wayback Machine and find out exactly where Mr. Jamie McLean was born and raised, and how you got into this wonderful, wacky world of rock and roll and just music in general, man. So, well, I wouldn't call you. I could call you rock and roll, but you got some cool roots in there too. So let's find out where you came from and how we got here. So give us some story, man. Give us some history.
Yeah, it's been a fun little ride for sure. I grew up about 45 minutes north of New York City in Connecticut, and started playing guitar when I was 13, something like that.
What was the impetus there? Parents, relatives, or some musical influence?
It's fun. It's funny. It's the strangest story, and it feels like it just kind of came out of the sky. I woke up one morning for school and was just kind of laying there, and my mom poked her head in and she said, "You got to get up and go. You're running late. What are you doing?" And I just sat up in bed, and this is the first time it had ever come to me. I said, "Mom, I think I should play guitar." Wow. And she kind of did a double take, and she's like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, I think I should play guitar." She's like, "Okay, great. We can talk about that later. Like, get in the shower, like you're late." And it was just literally like a bolt of lightning out of nowhere. I woke up, and it was literally this kind of moment where something told me, get a guitar in this guy's hands. And, so pretty soon after that, we got a little starter guitar, and off I went with, I took some lessons with a local teacher, Ken Volpe, who was great. And, we really, over the year, I studied with him, really all through high school, did all the theory and, just dug into everything that I was digging on. And he really showed me, kind of everything I knew up to that point. My brother is a fantastic drummer, Carter McLean, and he is, his main gig right now is playing drums for the Lion King on Broadway. And,
nice.
He's extremely talented. He plays with Charlie Hunter as well. And, going down into the basement with your brother, who really could play anything, it definitely made you start to practice a little more and kind of catch up quickly, because he was down there playing Neil Peart and 7/8 and 9/8, all these time signatures. I didn't even know what was going on, and kind of off we went. So now, it was nice to grow.
I'm sorry. You said he plays with the Lion King, in the band for the Lion King. I would assume he reads charts. Was he schooled? And were you schooled?
Yep. Yeah, same thing. He had a private teacher, and one of the first things that they really did was sight reading, which he hated at first. But no, he's very much a sight reader. He, at this point, he kind of has that book memorized. He's been doing it for almost 15 years. But
wow.
No, he's a proficient reader and just a great player. And same with me. I can read, and it's interesting. I don't use it as much as I thought I would, back when I was 13 or 14. But when the time comes and a chart gets thrown in front of you, it's kind of sink or swim. So I'm glad I kind of have that in my back pocket when I need it.
Nice.
Now that's pretty. Now that came for both of you guys through private teachers. There was no musical college or anything involved.
No, neither of us went to music school, which. Okay. Is interesting. I never thought about that. I always obviously knew I didn't, and thinking about my brother too, neither of us went to music school. We studied privately, and then, just really kind of dove in with gigs. I mean, when I went to college, started a band, I had a band all through high school with my brother, and that was really kicking my butt because he was so talented. But then, once I got to college, I started a band, and, pretty soon after that, we were, gigging, playing in bars in Boston, like once a week or something like that. So for me, it was really more hands-on training. I did do a couple summer programs. The National Guitar Summer Workshop, which is no longer around, was something I did, and that was just like a week of studying with different guest teachers. One year I went, John Schofield was a teacher who is one of my heroes. So you would be basically you'd major in something like rock 2 or rock 3, and then a bunch of minors. So that was really fun, but never went to an actual music school. Once I got to college, I was an English major because I love to read, I love to write, and I'd like to think that some of that comes off in my lyric writing. I guess I get to use that a little bit in lyric writing, but never studied formally other than the private lessons. And
wow.
I always come back to throw on your favorite record and play along with it and figure it out. That's how they did it back in the day, and that's really some of the most fun I had as a kid, was just throwing on Zeppelin records and Hendrix records and cranking my amp and trying to figure out what the hell these guys were doing.
Sure.
And kind of more of a sink or swim attitude.
Yeah. It seems to be, that was, read all those articles from Eddie Van Halen from all the Guitar Player magazine, interviews back in the day. And he was like, yeah, just put it on. Figured out that if you did it at 16 speed instead of 33, you could figure out all the Clapton licks. And it was like, and then you hear Stevie Ray Vaughan say the same exact thing. It was like, that was the way. And it developed these guys.
Yeah.
I mean, now it's so much information that it's almost like the learning part of it is kind of different now, right? Because of all the tab and the videos and,
Yeah, it's great that that's all there, but I'm kind of old school, and I really do think there's some value in that of, rolling up your sleeves and figuring it out yourselves. Like you could put a record on and there's 1,000 different ways to finger, the solo for All Along the Watchtower or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But, if you look at the tab and you just follow along, that's great, but it's kind of nice to figure out a couple different ways to do it. And, you start to develop your own, fingerings and phrasing. And, I always feel like there's a lot of guys that come out of certain music schools and, they're all killing players, but you start to hear a little bit of a similar thing
mm-hmm.
where, they all took the same class, and this is how you play this, and this is how you play that, where, if you kind of work on it yourself, you can develop your own voice in that rather than someone saying, put your hand here and do it just like this,
Oh, absolutely.
But, that's just the way that I did it. And, to each his own, obviously.
Yeah. Now you said when you woke up and said, I want to play guitar, you got a starter set. Do you remember what your first guitar was?
It was some sort of a Strat, but it wasn't a Fender. It wasn't a Squire. It was some bizarre, I wish I could remember what it was called. But it was just, my mom wasn't so sure what was going on. So we just got, something that, wasn't too valuable and just kind of get things going. And then I ended up getting, really all through the early years, I was playing a Stratocaster. Stevie Ray Vaughan and Eric Clapton and Hendrix were all big influences. And so I played a Strat, really for the early part of my playing. And, a Strat into a Fender amp always kind of worked for me. So that was what I was doing early on. And then, I've obviously got a closet full of guitars at this point. But, the early days was a Strat.
Now, you said you were playing like gigs in Boston on the weekend with your brother. What kind of stuff were you doing? Were you doing original stuff, rock, dance? What were you doing?
At the very beginning, it was, all the stuff that we liked. It was Hendrix and Clapton, and my brother was really into Rush. So, whatever we were digging on was kind of what we were doing. It was a lot of classic rock. But, towards the end, we were writing a lot of original material. So it was a mix of both, but certainly, kind of hitting that bar band kind of classic rock thing along with some originals.
Cool. So that was about when was this?
Let's see. That would have been, college was 94 to 98.
Okay. And what was the next musical step from there for you?
So from there, I graduated school in Boston. My brother was actually at that point going to school in Boulder, Colorado. And I kind of followed him out there. I was 2021 or whatever it was, and figured I'd go and check it out, do a little skiing, and kind of get the band back together with my brother. And we kind of did the same thing, played all over Colorado, playing shows, and we opened up for a lot of people. We did that was the first time I met Charlie Hunter out there, Maceo Parker. We just did a lot of opening slots, and we did a bunch for the Dirty Dozen Brass Band out there, and that's where I first met them. And that was, kind of my entrance into becoming a member of that band. We did a show one time. Actually, we weren't even the opening act. I just knew that they were in town. So I went and got some lunch with them, and they told me to bring my rig and sit in.
Oh, nice.
And so, come down and set up, and I figure they're going to call me up for the encore or something late in the show, and they brought me up on the first song, which I thought was weird. And so I said, all right. So we did the first song and figured that was it. And they said, no, stay, do the second song. And after a couple songs, I realized I'm not leaving. I'm doing the whole show with them. And I didn't know their music. Same kind of thing. There's no tablature to this thing. It's open up your ears and figure it out. They're
right.
counting off the song. I know it's in B flat, and that's all I've got. And after that show, they asked me to come up and do the weekend with them. They were up in Aspen and Vail. And the last night in Vail, I was kind of packing up, getting ready to go home, and the baritone player came over and said, well, the next show is in San Diego, and it's the start of a 5-week tour with the Meters. Do you need to go home and get a toothbrush or something? And
wow.
that was basically the invitation to join the Dirty Dozen Brass Band.
Wow. That's
so obviously went home, got
cool.
got a little bit more than a toothbrush, got a passport, and off I went. And then from there, the tour ended in New Orleans at the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival.
Oh, nice.
And that was a really eye-opening experience, playing for 60,000 people, and just really feeling like you got the key to the city a little bit, being in that band. And then obviously after that, I moved to New Orleans and lived there. Through Hurricane Katrina came, and after that, I decided it was time to go. But at that point, I had been playing with the Dirty Dozen about 6 years, and had been writing a lot of original music and knowing that I was ready to start my own thing. And it just sort of happened that Katrina came, and I was thinking about leaving the band. And so once the storm hit, I did a few more months with them, and then moved to New York and started Jamie McLean Band.
Wow. Man, that's a hell of a story. Go,
yeah.
You want to sit in, like, not for a song, but for like 6 years.
Yeah. And there will
wild.
never be a rehearsal.
Right.
I never had one rehearsal with them.
Wow. But, once you get the feel and kind of get to know the music in general, I would imagine it's as much about the feel as particulars of the song.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, there are some horn lines that I double that are pretty intense that I had to kind of sit down and really hash out with them. But, the rhythm is really the big thing there. And, we did a lot of stuff with this jam band called Widespread Panic. And I remember, we did shows with them very early on. And then, like a couple of years later, we did some more shows, and the bass player came over to me. We were doing a show at Madison Square Garden, and he just kind of strolled over and was like, man, you have got so much soul in you now. And he meant that in a nice way, meaning that, like, I knew that when I joined the band, I was like a 21-year-old white kid from Connecticut that joined this band, didn't know the music, had to kind of figure it out as he went. And, traveling the world with those guys, something is going to rub off on you, and just really all that New Orleans, the rhythm and just the whole soul of the city, I think has kind of oozed into my playing a little bit. And it's a huge compliment. Yeah, but the rhythm is a big part of it.
Yeah, for sure. And it's such a great city, man. I mean, you can, it has that rhythm, it really does. I love New Orleans. I love the music that comes out of there. You know, the Radiators and the Subdudes are both friends of ours. And, you know, of course, Dirty Dozen. You've got, oh God, what is the other big brass band that's there?
Rebirth.
Yeah, Rebirth. Yeah, Rebirth brass band. Yeah. But man, there's so much stuff that comes out of there. It's and it all has that feel and that groove to it. You know, that just you want to get up and dance and party kind of thing. You know.
Yep, absolutely.
What when you were touring with them, what was your rig like then?
Let's see. For most of the time with them, you know, my main guitar still to this day has been a Heritage 535, which is it's a 335 made in the old Gibson factory in Kalamazoo.
Yep.
We just saw their new lines.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really, I've got some vintage Gibson 335s that are beautiful guitars, but there's something about the Heritage that's really just kind of been my main voice. And
when did you switch? When did you switch from Strat styles to Gibson styles?
Let's see. I got the Heritage while I was in college, so it was.
Oh. Wow.
It was a couple of years, I was probably with the Strat for 6 or 7 years, and then a couple of years before I joined Dirty Dozen, I got the 335, and it's been my main guitar ever since. I played that for most of the Dirty Dozen years, and then I got a 1973 Fender Strat out in Oregon while I was on tour with them at one point. And I definitely used it on a fair amount of Dirty Dozen shows too, but it was mostly 335. And at that point, I was going into a Fender Twin with a couple of pedals, but nothing too fancy. And the Heritage has really stayed with me the whole time. I still have the Strat too. And yeah, those are sort of the main Dirty Dozen guitars.
Yeah, I was just wondering if going into the Dirty Dozen brass band, you kind of felt you needed more of the hollow body thing than the Strat, but obviously you gravitated to that a few years before.
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily the reason that I switched. It was just I'd kind of, like I said, John Scofield was an influence, and that whole thing was a sound that I was digging and gravitating towards. And actually, when I went in to get the 335, I was very much in between the Heritage and a Ibanez Artist, which was kind of what Scofield was playing at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing against the Ibanez Artist, but I'm so glad I went with the Heritage. It was definitely the right guitar for me.
Nice.
And then, yeah, I mean, it's just really been like a natural voice for me. That I've got a Strat, and I recorded a lot of this new record on a Telly. I've got a Gibson Les Paul. And I'd like to think that I sound like myself on all of those instruments, but the Heritage is so comfortable, and it's really versatile with a lot of different sounds that it's definitely just been the go-to.
Yeah, like Mick was saying, we were just looking at their guitars at a couple of weeks ago at NAMM in Anaheim, and yeah, I mean the 335 style and the Les Paul style, man, you just pick them up and they just feel so right. They feel like you would like that original manufacturer's guitars to feel in your hand when you pick them up, man. They do a really great job.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, I'm a massive fan of it.
Yeah, very cool. All right, so you left Dirty Dozen and started Jamie McLean Band.
Yeah.
When, and I guess what was the did you have the players in mind that you wanted to start that band with, and the material that you wanted to start playing and recording?
Well, it sort of happened simultaneously. I was writing a lot of music while I was still in the Dirty Dozen, And for probably about a year there, I was just sort of flying up from New Orleans and doing shows in New York whenever I had some breaks. And, my brother Carter was on drums, and he had some guys in New York that he liked. And we just sort of put it together just with my brother and I, and we had keys and bass. And, I was kind of going back and forth when I could to play shows in New York. And then, obviously once it started to get a little bit busier, it was time to make a decision, and then Katrina came. So there was a little bit of overlap there for sure. And then once I made the full switch, I sort of already had the band in place, and we had already been playing some shows. I was lucky in that, a lot of friends that I had met through Dirty Dozen, started to kind of throw me some opening slots with Jamie McLean Band. So I was, went out and did some touring with North Mississippi All-Stars and Galactic, and just friends that I knew from the road. So I sort of already had a little bit of something in place there. So there wasn't any lag time, and it was just kind of ready to go when I was ready to go, which was great.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
That is great. When did you record your first release?
That is a good question. The first record, I'm going to say, was like 2006, something like that.
Okay.
And yeah, we've got a new one coming out later this month, and I think that is either my 6th or 7th record. And I love recording, but it's really, I like to get the songs down, and then I like to just take them out on the road and play them live. That's really where I prefer to be, is on the stage. I love being in the studio and recording, but interaction with other people is so important, and to do it in front of an audience is really fun. So just cranking out records every couple of years, and we've been really lucky to be able to tour with a lot of my heroes. We were able to go out and we did a summer tour opening up for Greg Allman.
Oh, nice.
We did some dates with Johnny Winter. And a lot of these guys have passed. So we did some stuff with Leon Russell, Taj Mahal, Dr. John, Derek Trucks. It's been a list of kind of some musical heroes that we've been able to go out and play some music and have some drinks in the dressing room with. So I feel really lucky to have been able to do a lot of that, and looking forward to keeping it rolling here into 2018 with the new record. We're going to be touring. We actually leave tomorrow for a tour, and we'll be out for the next 2 months for the most part.
Oh, wow.
And just kind of keep it rolling.
You mentioned recording. I want to touch base on how you record of it, and it may have changed since 2006. But are you guys? Have you ever had the opportunity to do tape, or is it still all digital? And are you somebody that likes to move air, or have you gravitated towards a virtual kind of recording?
No, I always record with an amplifier. I've never done that, or the virtual recording. The first record we did to tape.
Oh, wow.
I would say more than half of them we've done to tape.
No shit.
It's in the day and age when people are listening to records on their iPhones, it's through the little speakers on their iPhones or their laptops, or those stupid little earbuds that come with your phones. It's tricky to know, what's actually translating anymore sonically. I've got a great system at the house here where obviously I can appreciate it, but I know most people are, listening to MP3s and stuff on little phones. So more than anything at this point, I think tape is great. It does make the recording process a little trickier just as far as time management and stuff like that. So more often than not, I have no problem just, getting a great guitar, great amp, great drums, great microphones, and, recording it into Pro Tools or whatever they're going to use, and, and then mixing it and mastering it after that. I know a lot of people swear by tape, and I've done both. I just know that for me in the studio, I like to be able to move. I don't want the tape to be dictating the pace of the recording process. We've got to take a break, guys, and deal with the tape.
I hear you.
I've done both. I've never done any of that in the box virtual amplifier stuff. I've always got an amp cranked up.
Good.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, tape, not only is it more time consuming, especially edits and things like that, but it's can get a little costly.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, if you remember correctly, Davey was telling us about what they did. They repurposed the tape, remember? For his last album, he said, they found a company that would actually, find old tape and get it all right. And,
wipe it, yeah.
Yeah, and then you'd use that. And I was like, man. And he said it was very, it was actually affordable.
Wow.
And you're recycling. I mean, it's all good.
Yeah, it's the ultimate recycle.
There you go.
That's cool.
Yeah. So what's your I don't quite remember when I had seen you. What's your stage rig like now? Of course the Heritage. But what's your normal rig? And do you rely a lot on backline, or are you still able to, carry your own backline to some degree?
I carry my own. Obviously when it's a fly date, it's backline, but I'm pretty easy with gear. Almost any Fender amplifier with tubes is going to work for me.
Wow.
My go-to is I've got a 1965 Deluxe that is sort of my go-to. But I'm a big fan of Fender amps, and really any Fender amp with tubes is I can make work somehow. So, I'll backline a Fender Deluxe. I'll even do like the Fender DeVille, the kind of the newer Fender DeVille with the 2 channels, and I'll just use the dirty channel and with no pedals and just kind of roll the volume down and work the drive that way. So I'm pretty basic, and Derek Trucks uses a 1/4-inch cable, so if he can get that sound with a 1/4-inch cable, there's ways to do it. It's really in the fingers as far as I'm concerned. So, my touring rig, the Heritage is the main axe. I've got a 1969 Gibson 335 that I bring out that I keep in open D tuning for some songs that we have an open tune on. I run into my pedal board is really simple, man. I've got a volume pedal, I've got a tuner, I've got a full tone fat boost that is always on just to kind of get the tubes really cranked up, kind of like a Keith Richards, just not dirty, but just kind of gained out rhythm sound where it just sounds like the amp is cranked up to 6 or 7. And then I've got a couple other boost pedals, and I'll just stack those. So it's literally a tuner, a volume pedal, and then a couple of boost pedals.
Wow.
And I run that into the Fender Deluxe, and that's it for me.
Really doesn't get much simpler.
Yeah, I mean, I really, if you've got a clean boost and then you've got another clean boost and you stack them, then you've got like something that's pretty dirty. And then, I've got sort of a quasi tube screamer thing that Plush makes that that's through Fuchs amplifiers. Fuchs makes this pedal. And so it's just like a couple of clean boosts and then like a tube screamer. And you can stack them. You could be clean, sort of dirty, and then just ridiculously dirty. And that's really what I'm using for a touring rig. I've got the Les Paul. I've got the Strat. I've got a Taylor acoustic that I love. I've got a couple of National resonators. I'm in the hunt for a new Telecaster right now, but I keep it pretty simple.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, for sure. And I can remember seeing you, and the first thing that I thought was, I love this tone. It is just, it's not full of delays and reverbs, too much reverb, and it drives, but it's not overly distorted. there certainly didn't seem like there's any distortion pedals involved, just some really nice organic sounding drive to it. And,
Yep.
What that round thing on the guitar is for, the little volume knob. Yeah. So, that's just my favorite, man. When somebody can just strap on a guitar, get a good driving sound out of it and just control everything with the volume and your pick and your fingers, and bring on every nuance that you need throughout the show with something simple like that. It's like, that's somebody that really not only knows his gear, but knows how to use it, knows how to play the guitar, knows how to get out of it what he wants to get out of it. And man, it was just a great sound. I have to tell you, it was just a great sound.
Yeah, to me, it just it always comes back to the fingers. It's cliche, and but to see Derek's trucks, literally just plug into an amplifier, and I remember seeing Mike Campbell play with the Heartbreakers at Madison Square Garden, and he's going into a couple small little tweed amps, like nothing fancy. There's no stacks back there. There's no big pedal board. I mean, there are pedals, but really, it's just you get a good amp and a guitar, and you crank it. If you can play, you're going to get a good tone from there. And to kind of muddle it with all this other stuff, a lot of people do great stuff with the pedals. I just really come back to something that's a little bit more classic. And more often than not lately, I'm touring with Aaron Neville as well right now. And I backline 2 Fender DeVilles, and I literally just show up with a guitar and a pick. There's a 1/4-inch cable there, and then I literally just work it with the volume as far as getting a drive. And I've had so many people come up to me looking for the pedals and being like, "How do you get that sound?" I'm like, "Man, this is an amplifier that I'm sure came from Guitar Center and my favorite guitar." And I think that's kind of an art in itself, where everyone's hunting for like the holy grail of tones and pedals and the TS 808s or whatever those tube screamers are going for $500. I mean, they all sound great, but it's like that's such a wormhole. And at a certain point, it's like, well, what happens if we take it all away and just play great?
Right. What a novel concept.
I don't know. I know, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that hate this idea and want to find out what the secret pedals are, but it's really, you start to see, and I've toured with these guys, you see some of these monster players and you go and you can't wait to take a picture of their pedals, and there's nothing there, man. It's a tuner, it's like, it's the fingers, and the emotion, I remember being out with Derek and someone was saying, "Man, why don't you do an instructional video?" Everyone would buy the Derek Trucks instructional video. And Derek said something that I'll always remember. He said, "Man, I wouldn't know what to tell everybody. The video would be like 10 seconds long. I would say, crank the amp up to 10, close your eyes, and go for it." And, there's a lot to that, to not have anything there other than, your guitar and amp, and you've got to kind of put all the energy behind it. You play one note with a ton of feeling, it's going to trump a million notes with a ton of pedals on it every time. So
it's a good quote.
That's kind of my rig rundown, which is super short and sweet, but that's just what I'm doing.
Yeah, I love it, man. Yeah. I love it. It's well, it proves that you know how to play. That's for damn sure.
Well, you've got to have that. You've got to have a little bit of technique, and then you're off.
It amazes me because sometimes we'll talk to pedal manufacturers and things like that, and I have nothing against anybody that builds any musical gear, because there's going to be that one pedal for that one guy that's going to be the Grail. It's just going to be the Holy Grail. But I couldn't even guess at the amount of overdrive and distortion pedals that are out there today, because the boutique market has just blown up, it's and 90% of it is distortion and overdrive pedals.
Yeah.
And like everybody's coming out with a new one every month or two. how many different ways can you dirty up a sound?
Well, and I was going to say probably 90% of those are trying to emulate what Tweed Deluxe sounds like on 9. You know,
right?
Like,
yeah.
We could play this game, or we could just do what this thing is trying to emulate.
Yeah, and I get it that not everybody can afford even a Tweed Deluxe. You know.
Right. But really, it doesn't have to be fancy. It's when I was in the studio for this new record, I brought a bunch of amps, and I had my 65 Deluxe. I've got a reissue Deluxe that I had just as a backup that I was touring with for a while on the West Coast, and brought that as a backup. And lo and behold, the first day I went and fired up my 65 Deluxe, went into record, and there was no sound, and something blew on the amp, and literally couldn't get any sound out of it. And we're like, well, let's go with the backup. And I literally recorded, I think, 99% of the record on a Fender Deluxe that I got at Guitar Center in Los Angeles that, was straight out of the box, nothing fancy. So I just kind of keep coming back to that idea of, gear is great, but it's not everything. If you put a toy guitar in B.B. King's hands, it's going to sound just fine.
We've said that 1,000 times. And I always go back to two of my favorite bands because, they're just rock and roll, which is, of course, the Kings, AC/DC, and then the other guys that are coming up from Australia is Airborne. And I remember seeing a rig rundown for Airborne, and the guy went, all right, now just pay attention because I could lose you real quick here. He goes, Gibson, Cord, and Marshall. And he goes, right? We have wireless packs. He goes, but most of the time we end up disconnecting those about halfway through the show and we go with the lead. And it was like, the guitar tech was just like, well, I do have a big job because the guitars, he's got a handful of guitars to do, but they also have 20 Marshalls they have to, maintain. And a lot of that is on, in that rig rundown.
Wow.
I was very surprised because I was like, they probably got one or two. And it was like, no, they got like 4 on each side just going, and then 2 SVTs. I mean, Jeff, it was what we always talk about, right? It
was old school rock.
Yeah. It's, just Gibsons, there are Explorers, there's SGs, a bunch of Marshalls. A couple SVTs with 810s, the old type, and a Fender Precision, and then this drummer buried somewhere between all that.
That's what made at least a few rock and roll songs back in the day.
A little bit, yeah,
a little bit,
yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. So, Jamie, you mentioned a studio, a new album coming out. Is it out? What is it? Tell us.
Yeah, it comes out February 23rd.
Oh, we're timely here.
Yeah, we're right on time. It's called One and Only, and we recorded it in Nashville at a great studio called Sound Emporium. Ken Coomer from Wilco produced it, and I'm really proud of it. I think it's our strongest songs by far. And the recording sounds great. We've got Sam Bush guesting on mandolin, and Jeff Coffin from Dave Matthews Band playing some sax.
Oh, nice.
And people are pre-ordering it now on the website, and it'll come out the 23rd, and the tour cranks up literally tomorrow. So we're off to the races.
Cool.
Where's the tour start?
We're going to start in Virginia and work our way south. We get down to Charlotte and Atlanta. We're back in Nashville, kind of where it all started. And then we'll work our way back up. We'll get all the way back up to like Portland, Maine, and Boston. And we'll do a whole hometown show in New York City on the 28th.
Oh, nice.
And then we'll head out west in the spring. We're trying to get to Europe in the summer, and it just kind of never ends. So I feel very, very lucky to be able to do it.
Very cool, man. It sounds great. You passing through Maryland anywhere?
We will. We'll be in Easton, Maryland at the Avalon Theater.
Oh, okay.
That's in March. I want to say it's like March 16th.
Oh, look at that.
Wow. I don't know. I'll look at the calendar. Mick, you can certainly look at your calendar. Mine has just gotten so insanely full of gigs. I don't know what weekend we have off. Is the 16th a weekend or a weekday? Do you know?
It's a Friday.
Okay. Well, Mick might be running down solo, but Mick, you've never seen him. I've seen Jamie before. Yeah. Incredible band. Great singer-songwriter. Hell of a player because he knows how to work a guitar and an amp. So that's the one thing we love the most. So, man, well,
I'm telling you, it's just it's always refreshing, and we get to talk. We have talked to every walk of life. I mean, we've talked to guys that have never played through an amplifier and are actually pretty successful at what they're doing. True. And I mean, like, never gone in front of an audience. They're like YouTube sensations, right?
Yeah.
But to hear, and this is our big thing, to hear that guys are still doing it old school. And I know that, we can get into the grandpa talk, because we hear that from time to time. But there's something important about that. And, all the technology, all of the, shortcuts or, guitars that you breathe on, they play themselves, that type of thing. That's all, look, you're not going to get away from it. It's here and it's going to be here. But we also understand, and we preach constantly, that music is one of those things, and especially instruments. Even though I saw some electric violins at NAMM, for the majority, they're still made the exact way and played the exact way they have been for thousands of years, or hundreds of years, or however you want to look at it. But it's really refreshing when we talk to guys like yourself who are still, as basic as can be and doing it that way. Because I think that's something that we're slipping on. And even though everybody's like, well, you got to go with the times, it's like, yeah, but also if you get enough guys that do it this way, then the clubs will understand that it's done this way, and they won't be dictating to you. You can dictate to them. And I think, on a different level, I go crazy when I watch a YouTube video and all I hear is the people talking while this guy is up on stage busting his ass, but the sound man, because he's running direct, can bring him down so people can have conversation. And I'm like losing my mind because the guy didn't woodshed for 10,000 hours to have you have a conversation while he played.
Yeah.
It's that 7-second thing that we always talk about that just drives me insane.
It's a tough environment, man, but it's you got guys like Jamie out there doing it, like recording original stuff and, not just one release. I mean, man, since 2006, Jamie, I really didn't know your band, your personal band went back that far. That's 12 years. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, man.
To be able to take that and make a living with it and tour with it and go back and do it again and then go out and tour. This is what everybody kind of dreamed of when they, like when you woke up and said, I want to play guitar. It's probably what you had in mind, and you're actually able to do it now, man. So congratulations and, much continued success with it.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I feel very lucky, and it really is, like you said, kind of a dream come true where, once I got the guitar in my hand, I knew it was something I wanted to be doing, and to be getting paid to go out and do it and really kind of just bring a little bit of joy to other people it's the best job in the world. I feel very blessed to be able to do it.
That's pretty
nice,
awesome,
man. Well, people should feel blessed to hear you do it as well. And, like you said, bring enjoyment to people, man. There ain't enough of that. So, we always encourage people to go out and see live music, hear live music, whether it's a local band, whether it's a guy like Jamie that's coming to a cool venue in your town. You don't know who he is, plug down a couple dollars at the door, go see him, man. It's a great night out. that you probably wouldn't have had otherwise. So go do it. Go support local music. Go support Jamie McLean.
That's right.
There you go. Jamie, thank you so very much for being on. Like I said, much continued success. If for some reason I'm not gigging on that date and Mick's able to do it, maybe we'll ride down to the Avalon and go say hi, man. But if not, have a great gig there and a great gig everywhere else, and safe travels and much continued success in 2018, my friend.
Thank you. You too, guys. Really appreciate the time.
You're more than welcome, man. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Take care. You too.
Bye.
And there you have the story.
How cool is that?
Yeah. I told you, man. When I saw him, I said, this guy. I loved him when he opened for Davey. I said, we got to have him on the show. Just find out where he came from, what his story is. You know.
And look, I mean, I know some people are probably like, you guys are beating a dead horse, but it's like, it's very important, and especially in our world with and we can use it for anything really, but guitars and bass and everything else, it is very important not to lose those beginning tools. You don't have to go and get a 1968 whatever and playing through an amp that was built in the same year. We're not saying that, but there's something, that visceral part that just we don't want that to go away, and I think it's very important that it doesn't go away. It's all nice, we've said this, it's really nice that you got something now that you can plug into your computer and you can scratch down and put down what you need at 2 o'clock in the morning without waking up the neighbors or your family. That's great.
I do it all the time, so do you.
Yeah, that is a great thing. But when it comes to the rubber meeting the road and you're going to actually do your thing, look, our good buddy Greg Mara has said this many a times. He has the fractal. He loves it, but he said there was something about it that when you put that speaker to that microphone to the speaker and you start moving that air, that dynamic completely takes on another realm. And even though they sound the same, and I'm doing little air quotes, there's something about it. And I don't know what the science is behind that. Really don't care. It's just when it happens, that it's like, oh, I understand why, my guitar hero, Eddie Van Halen, has never recorded any other way but through whatever flavor of amp he has made for him this week, turned up so loud that your head's going to explode. And,
I love that.
And there's something about that, right? We
Totally.
also understand that not everybody has that facility to do that,
right.
But it's that live thing.
Right.
The live thing is kind of a weird thing, and so many of these clubs now, they're demanding, it has to be turned down, and it's like, what happened? That part just drives me insane, because it's like, why? Where did it go wrong?
I don't know, man. But I can tell you that occasionally we'll get asked to tame it just a little bit, but that's usually, okay, maybe it's during the first set, something like that. But all I can tell you is the way the calendar looks this year, I've probably never played as much in my life between the two bands that I'm in. And, there's either 2 or 3 guitar amps on stage with these bands, and we're luckily still able to do it. So,
oh yeah, absolutely.
I'm loving life, man. Loving life.
Yeah, and like we always say, just everybody, just keep it going, man.
That's it. Do what you can.
If you keep it going, we can keep this going.
That's right.
And you never know, right? I don't know what the hell I'm saying.
I never know what I'm saying. I never know what you're saying.
Exactly. So until next time, my friend.
Where we still won't know.
I'm Mick Marcelino.
I'm still Jeff Bober, I guess.
And I don't know what we're saying, but we're always saying...
Onward.
Be sure and follow the show on Twitter @Amps and Axes Also, make sure you like the show on Facebook. For news, comments, and everything else, visit the webpage, ampsandaccesscast.com. Thanks for listening.